Ah, that's okay. It's recording now. No, just the link that he gave me, that Nick gave me, doesn't seem to work. It says the video's not working, so I don't know why.
Thank you.
So I'll have to find out, because he watched it on his screen yesterday.
Morning.
Morning, how are you?
Thank you, Alice. How are you?
Just as far back as possible, so I can get some of you. Oh, I'm being phoned.
Good morning. No coffee? No time?
Oh, no, you coming in now?
So I'm flushing my mouth.
And
I'm returning a pen.
Yeah.
Just so everyone can see that.
Is that not normal for you?
No, I just been counting the pen style in history.
Well, yes, in third degree burns. Well, perhaps not third. Only second. No skin grafts required.
Now, folks, if you're getting a bit munchy,
hard-working brains just unless that works, I can think of a bit.
thank you. Food. Don't you love your notes where you've got eggs, dog food, and then your personas all on one, all on one as a healthy range.
Well, you get at a pinch, you can boil the page, and you've got soup.
I made some fritters for the kids. One wanted time to feed and they were good.
What were they?
They were like bacon and onion and garlic, and then sweet potato as the main kind of
Salt, sugar,
and flour, pepper,
salt,
bit of
sugar,
cheese.
Yeah. That's sugar. You've just done the lab rat thing.
Oh, good.
They're now addicted to
Now,
it.
you know what you're doing if you did it.
Happy children.
Happy children.
Welcome.
I've got bananas too.
Gosh, have you brought food for us all?
Well, I just took these in because I know they look a bit terrible, but they'll be okay. If you're hungry, and some rescue ready.
Rescue ready.
They do not have that.
I needed that last week.
Well,
They threw me in the deep end last week.
Oh,
I'm
really?
Just
I look at you, you're
I'm just
sweating.
landing. I'm just landing.
You don't even have
Edge.
goggles.
I have a friend who, the whole thing with Aborigines couldn't go to the pool, local pool. And she was more at Bedford County, WA, which was made everyone else look reasonable. And she had a white friend from school, and they could go into the enclosure, but they weren't allowed in the pool. So she got her friend to push her in the pool. I came over, let it go in the pool. Now we're going to have to drain it. And he said, get out. And she said, okay. And she swam the entire length of the pool before she got out.
How dare they? Isn't that just?
Well, that's
Yep,
how
I know,
people work.
And you know what? You know what? It's 2019 and we've got our first Aboriginal minister.
Oh, and
It's like, that's
instead of
just
going,
disgusting.
hooray, why aren't we going, what? How good's that?
It is great. It is fantastic.
But yeah,
but it's well overdue.
Yeah, how was it?
Well overdue.
And
I wonder if we've got a woman in Minister for Women's Affairs.
no. Best
No, we
because
have
they get
to have
upset
it. Come on.
easily. They get upset easily and then they can't think straight. You know that.
Too emotional.
You can't take the pressure.
At least they're going to have a discussion. I don't think it's an inquiry as much yet into domestic violence and violence against women, which is right after that last murder down in Melbourne. So let's hope they get some movement on that.
I was ready to punch the screen when they were talking about I think it was the radio. I had to punch the radio. But they were going, some sound bite from some parliamentarian going, when are they going to get them? And I'm going, hang on, when are you going to provide housing for people so they're not at the mercy of idiots? Like, don't. That annoys me, that reflection. Why are so many people still not able to have a roof over their heads? Well, I mean, address all violence, but don't pretend like, that was just unlucky. Because
She was homeless. Was that part of the discussion?
yeah, she her life was under control because she was on drugs.
That's good. Mind dump.
There you go, that's where I'm right.
Fantastic. I don't know what you
That's what you meant, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That's okay. But I didn't get it.
Hi, Alice. Got 4 hours.
It's just Jared and us our lunch. GIRDA.
Doesn't move it away.
Okay, we've lost me in the first line because I've got no idea what that is.
We have everyone in at the moment.
I think so. We're missing James. And
Lachlan's actually got an RSV apology. He's not feeling well this morning.
Really?
Yeah, he would. I haven't managed to text him back yet, but it's okay.
Is it on the turn?
It would take me a death for him to miss this.
That's right. Like
he's
turn
very committed to it.
Oh,
so,
you're right.
it's okay.
So I don't know if I can see everyone. I think I saw Andrea. Is Carolyn there as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, she's just doing my menial duties.
I'm going to do PA charging the phone.
Hey, if you can get one.
Can we move the tables back so we're a bit more in view? Does that work? Does that give us any more? What? Do you
Can you see half of Andrea's nose?
I'll move this way because then you might be able to.
So there's Andrea.
Yeah, we can move up a bit.
Can you see me?
No.
You know what we're going to do?
You are
Forget
completely
all
out
that.
of it.
We'll move this way. What the hell?
Oh, perfect.
Oh, this is perfect.
Can
I
you
love
see-
this spot. Look at
Yeah.
this. I've got an armrest. Look at this. I feel like a lounge chair.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Now I can see everyone.
Not really.
Can you see still?
I can see half of Carolyn's face.
No, what, are you can no, you can't.
No, I can't. Come back here if you need us.
Shit on the table.
Now, you just lean forward in rapt attention and you can see it.
There we go.
Hi.
As long as I know you're there, that's good.
You'll hear me if you don't see me.
I can hear everyone. Is this sound all right? I'm in a really echoey room today.
I might as well write in the books.
Yeah, your view last week was better with the trees outside.
Oh yeah, I'm in a school this week.
I was keeping it safe.
So I'm in a storeroom.
Chains and locks on the cupboards behind you.
I know. It's not the most glamorous place I've ever been.
Silver water. Yeah. Yeah, it's fine.
Anyway, so this is week 3 of Startup Caffeines. This is the halfway mark, which has seemed just flown by. But we are also sort of a week behind in terms of the work that we're doing. So the focus for this week going through the course was meant to be kind of prototyping, building your business. I know Tim's already built his business, already built his prototypes, so we can have a look at that as well. But I know from last time that a lot of people were still doing a lot of customer testing and understanding of the problem and the user group and what's actually going on there. And I think I said this when I was actually in Bathurst and last week as well. For me, if the only thing you get out of the next 6 weeks is a really solid understanding of your customer and their problem, and you've got all these resources kind of to access for, however long the course stays open for, which I think is up to upstairs, but hopefully it'll be there kind of in perpetuity. But if you get a really strong understanding of your customer and their problems and how they experience them, that for me is a massive win. And it should hopefully kind of lead you to a neat solution once you really understand those people. So so I've kept the questions the same from last week, which are, number 1, it's in the chat. Can you see the chat? In Zoom?
No. Oh, this is. Oh. Do we just have to highlight that chat?
Chat box is open. But it's just, same as last time. So number 1, how many customers have you spoken to? What 3 things have you learned about your business or your customers in the last week? What is your focus for this week? What is your biggest untested assumption about your business? What support, advice, or connections do you need? So that last one, I was asking you guys, and I think there were some suggestions last week for ways that people could be supported. I'm aware from the first workshop that there is an issue around privacy. So if you send me an email with your request, then I can basically, I'll use that as the tool to talk to people. I don't want to kind of misrepresent the business or you or your intentions. So just if you put it down in writing, then I'm comfortable I'm not doing anything wrong. So far, Lockie sent me an email yesterday asking for access to teachers who work with people with special needs. And I'm actually at a school today and we'll be doing that this afternoon. So I'll be able to kind of make his request to them. So please do kind of send that stuff in writing. And my email is in there. Oh, you've all got access to my emails. It's in your emails as well. So that's just a note about that one. But yeah, do we want to kick off with Tim?
Yeah, I've been pretty busy this week. Yeah, it's been good because it's been the cold weather sort of forces me inside to do a bit of computer work. It's too cold to go outside. And I'm normally pretty easy going, but once it hits about -2 or -3, well, I'm back inside. So. Yeah, so I've written 3 documents here, a bit of a summary of each one, and I haven't had a lot of chance to sort of get out and talk to people just yet, but the few people I've talked to about the Kaffeine app is they want it ready to purchase kind of thing. So I was wondering what's the next step. Like if we've got a prototype, is there a DIN number or something?
What was that? They wanted a regular purchase.
Yeah, they're ready to buy the app kind of thing. But
We've got customers.
yeah, good customers. But is there a DIN number you've got to apply for or something to be able to sell that? I've done a bit through Kaffeine Workshop.
Isn't it just,
Right. So that's the next step on that one. Then the other 2, well, the river I'm probably just going to put on hold a bit, but yeah, I'm going to Sydney this afternoon for my soil compaction one, so I'll know a lot more next week. Yeah, I was just reading an email here. There's a guy down there, Craig Davis. Yeah, as part of the CBR Innovation Network, so that'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So here's the question about the PIN number. Is that about getting the app up on the App Store?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So I know that there's a process that you have to go to, and I know that it's changed since I last put an app up. But if you put your questions about like getting the app on the App Store up, I can put it in an email, send it to me. We can send that out to our network, and I can connect you with the right people.
Yep.
I'm sure I'll have to talk to you about it. Yeah, so you've got the app built already by AppyWorks? Yeah, cool.
The Android, I've got to get the Apple version built as well, but that's only a couple of emails to send off and get it going, and a couple of weeks back. And
They will probably be able to help you find all that documentation too.
Yeah, but I think they're all thrown out of whack this year because his wife is having a baby soon. She's having Zoe. So.
When is she due? Sorry, is it soon?
I don't know, it's probably August, I would guess, September maybe.
Yeah.
But she's doing it tough.
Is she?
She's doing it tough.
So with the app that you've already got up and using, are you looking at the data that's coming through?
No, I hadn't had a look at the back end of that kind of thing, but yeah, I've just got the AppyWorks to make it for me, and so I don't know much about the other side. It's only very simple. It's just basic calculator. It seems to be working pretty good.
Mm.
Yeah, I had 2 or 3 goes at sort of getting the glitches and things out of it in the first place. So yeah, I think it's ready to go.
Log into the back end of the Android to your Google Play Store.
Yeah, right.
There should be a login to that, and that will give you all that back end data that Alice is talking about. So it will give you metrics, sales, how many people have looked at it, how many people have downloaded it, if people have subscribed it.
At the moment, there's only one version of the only one version. So yeah,
Cool.
Yeah, it's all a bit new to me.
That's okay.
So that data will be really interesting if you've already got customers using it. So I've used kind of Google Analytics before, which is really helpful. I'm sure that you already know this, but looking at the behaviors of the customer through the back end is one way of understanding what the behavior is like. What are the things that they're clicking on? What screens are they disappearing from your app, when are they logging out, when are they logging in. A lot of that's really, really rich.
Yeah, right.
The other side that we really like to do with testing, if you've already got a prototype, sorry, there's somebody coming in through the kitchen, I'm not sure what's going on. But the other thing that we like to do is to, it sounds really creepy, but it's really helpful, is to give somebody the prototype, even if they're not your direct customer, and watch them click through the app and see where they're getting confused. What are they trying to click on that isn't there? What questions do they have as they go through? And that kind of rich data that you get from your customers will help you understand, is the app designed in such a way that it's really easy to use? Because I'm assuming that they're using this whilst they're working. It's not kind of sitting in a quiet room in perfect like exam conditions. So if you're out kind of as they're using it and observing them using it, that can be a way of really understanding, what is the app doing for them? What is it doing well? What is it not doing well? And how would you improve that experience for that customer?
Yep. Yeah, because I think it's often quite difficult to get feedback back from an app. Like, yeah, because I've bought apps before, and then you get sick of it, and then you just delete it. And, yeah, and that's it sort of thing. And there's not really any chance to have any feedback.
The Android store will tell you if people have deleted it.
Yeah, right.
Apple doesn't. Apple gives you downloads, but not deletes.
Yeah, but it'd be nice to have somewhere where they could sort of send you feedback, like through an email or Facebook message or something. But yeah, I don't think it's possible to get that information. Yeah.
You can put kind of feedback buttons in your app as well, to try and get people to do that, but people don't tend to do it unless they're complaining. And I think what might be really interesting is to kind of watch people as they're doing it and ask them what they do like about it. People don't tend to tell you what they love about it unless it's completely transformed their life. But if you've got something that's really good, that'll kind of tell you what's the key feature and what's the core of the app and the value proposition for them, like what's creating the value for them when they're using it. So I'm sure if you around them when they're using the app, then you can ask them, what do you like about it, what do you not like about it, and frame it as a, we're building it and we've got an opportunity to change things or improve things or iterate, and we really want your feedback, because then people start to get really open about what they want and don't want. Whereas if you're going in going, do you like my app? They tend to be like, yeah, it's great, or they'll completely rip you apart, and neither of those things are very useful. You want kind of them about what they really think about the product.
Yeah, right. So you can build in a feedback button in the app somewhere.
Yeah, I think the in-person stuff will be much richer, but you can build in a button as well for people to send feedback.
Yep. That could go both ways. So if you've got messages you could send out through that app as well, you can.
That would be a different.
Yeah. Because you've got push notifications then. So that changes a little bit in store. But I think what Alice is talking about, and just correct me if this is not right, she's talking about getting a room of 4 or 5 people, giving them a phone and just watching them interact. And when some people are looking for a delete button or an X or something, and they go, there it is, and you might realise then that might be too easy to be seen. So that it makes it really streamlined and user friendly. Is that correct?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
People use your app.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mine's only basic, it's only one screen, but that's it. It's just a basic calculator. But I think the market's about 20 to 30,000 apps available to sell, sort of thing. So yeah, it's a fair sized market.
Yeah.
So you found that on what farmers that buy stock in? How do you work out that number?
There's 47,000 beef producers in Australia.
Okay.
And that's just farmers. So yeah, the market could go up to 100,000. Yeah.
What about sheep? Oh, you were saying because in 3, so is that just cattle?
That's just cattle.
So that's what your app is targeting, or cattle?
Oh, just because I'm a cattle producer. Okay. You wouldn't know. Yeah, that's where I would want a bit of feedback. They could say, could we do this or could we do that? Yeah, so but mine's only set as units as well. So yeah, you wouldn't know where it would go down the track.
Really?
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, that's what
Go and hang out at the Perthville pub. A few farmers there. Yeah, but don't ask them to use the app after 10:30 at night. You might get some misleading feedback.
It's a really good idea. We've done that before where we were testing, I think I showed you the video where we went out to Double Bay and we were just asking parents there in a coffee shop. We just hung out in a coffee shop and just waited for people to come and talk to us. But I've done it before. We were testing something with about newly arrived refugees in Australia. And so we thought a comparable group that we could get access to in a sort of easier way was just international students who are newly arrived to Australia. And so we just went and stood outside UTS and we were asking students as they were coming through, can you spare sort of 10 minutes just to give us a bit of insight about this? And generally people are, they're quite happy to share their insights. But yeah, sitting in the pub and just having a chat with people, and maybe not even telling them that it's a customer interview, just, you're working on this problem and what do you think? Yeah, it's a good strategy. It works. So Tim, what's your focus for this week?
Go to Sydney for the next 2 days, and who would know what will happen down there. So make it from there next week.
Is that conference that
thingy? The Gate.
The Gate.
The Gate Boot Camp, as it's called. So should be pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I think that they do a lot of customer interviews with you.
Yep. Yeah, so don't even know anything about it much, how many people are going or what's going on. So I just, been told to turn up.
So is that like your connection to the orange? Like
the Gate into the orange house. They've got two different types. You'll get sort of rejected or you'll get like accepted into this boot camp, which is the sort of halfway kind of one, or you get accepted in fully with your idea and then they'll help you develop it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got two, so you're pushing this idea in the two in here and there as well. It's the same. Oh, good.
Doing it all together. Yeah. So it's all happening.
It's good timing that you can do both at the same time. Sort of.
Yeah. And that's why I sort of
double your chin.
Signed up for this one. Oh, it's filling in the gaps kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant.
Sounds like he's up for it. With the cold weather.
Yeah, when you're excited about an idea, that's what you do, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, you can't sort of hold back on it, So. But you've got to get your timelines kept pushing along, otherwise they drag out. All of a sudden, 6 months, 12 months goes by, and then nothing really happens. So you've got to get on and get things rolling, kind of thing.
Mm. And then, so for I guess there's something for when you're going to the Gate as well. Your biggest untested assumption about that cattle app, like what do you think you're making a guess about?
I'm not quite sure, but there's a lot of money involved in sort of buying and selling products. So I just got to work out a reasonable price, what I think I can get away with selling it for.
Yeah.
And then just go and start selling it.
Yeah.
That's the plan. And then try to get some sort of way of getting some feedback, and then developing other things from there.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, the pricing is a really complex one. There's 2 modules on money, and I think it's module, I can't remember which one it is, but one of the money modules is about pricing, and it's got a bunch of different strategies of how to do that. So there's the profit and loss accounts, which you'll be familiar with, but then there's kind of 3 strategies for deciding on your price. So they might be kind of helpful to go through, because we found trying to do customer interviews and testing pricing, kind of asking people what they would pay for something, you don't tend to get a very good or accurate response, because people then assume that they've committed to pay for it, so they get a bit about it. But there's a bunch of ways to test that price, and I think getting that right, it's so important, because you price it too high, no one buys it. You price it too low, and you're leaving money on the table. So that's a real complex one, and it's all human behavior. It's all psychological. It's not as kind of mathematical or logical as you would hope for money. So that module might be helpful for you.
I was thinking around that sort of $20, because I want to limit it a little bit. But I want only professional sort of people that have a company. So that's that's what I pay 50, but $10 is too cheap sort of thing. So that's where I thought about 20.
Why don't you want too many people to have it?
Oh, just supply and demand kind of thing, because you can.
Look at your eyes.
But more people could that's an interesting point. I'm just interested in that.
Oh, when you're going out competing, like buying thousands of dollars worth of cattle, because like most people, you'll spend $20,000, $30,000, and you've got a second to make that decision. to calculate it. So yeah,
But
you don't want every juggler having it.
but you're giving them your intelligent advantage.
Yeah.
But are there many other ways that they can win or lose besides buying the cattle?
Yeah, some people are very good at calculating things, and other people just have a guess. So.
Yeah. But I'm saying it's not the only thing that's going to make them successful in their life business.
No, definitely not. I've been using this for the last 6 months, and the amount of advantage it's already given me, it's already paid for itself.
So did you find that you jumped on decisions that quicker that you may have?
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean? You can sort of say, oh my God, I would have probably not have done that, but this is telling me go.
Yeah, because you can just click it and scroll through it. So.
There's often perceived value too in something that's more expensive.
Yes.
So
You could probably put $50 on it, and probably still get away with it.
well, I don't know how many cattle you turn in trade, but I would imagine that, you know, in that one quick decision, if you've got, you know,
Tens of
$10 per head,
thousands.
you know, or $100 per head or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, but you can't really calculate that way once you sell it.
No, I know you do, but for the value for the person that's buying it, you know, they sit there and they can make a quicker decision and it's easier and they know they've saved
And they can
themselves
move
a couple
with
of dollars
confidence. That's what
ahead.
I like about it.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean? You can say, yes, this is right.
It's a bit different. So that's the next thing, the feedback and pricing. Right? So.
There's interesting.
Sorry, I was talking.
There's a great pricing strategy about pricing your product where you're producing 10 times the amount of value as you're charging the product at. So if you're charging your product at $30, but you're producing $300 worth of value for the customer, it sounds like you're producing even more, then that's kind of a great way of, like a rule of thumb of sort of pricing. The only thing about that is that it sounds like you're producing way more value than that if you're helping people to use this kind of time on time with their cattle. But with software, with technology, because it's intangible, human beings have got a bit of an aversion to paying a lot of money for something they can't see, taste, touch, feel. So sometimes that makes kind of app pricing actually quite difficult. But I think it's maybe something you use in your advertising materials and your branding and your sales around, a story maybe about your experience buying cattle or selling cattle, that you use this app and it helped you to save, mosquito. It helped you save X amount of money in X amount of time because it allowed you to make those decisions better. So if it was explained in that way of, $30 and it gets you this amount of value, I think a lot of people would go like, well, $30 is a no-brainer. If I can have a potential of saving this amount in this shorter period of time, that might be something to look at.
Yeah, definitely. And this is only the first of a series of things as well. So I sort of want to build a bit of a front end, like on the app, and then click that one, and then go to the second page. And so I've got other things to come to it. But then I think Kaffeine Workshop, they said you can go to like a monthly subscription, and you're better off that way as well. Yeah.
So they could access your suite of
things. So
farming
like Xero, the amount of money Xero must make for $40, $50 a month for every business customer about. But so that's probably more the way to go, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
An amount that just disappears every month from their account.
It's a much better trickle subscription. Trickle the better, that's right.
Yeah, and then you spend a lot less on sales because you've already got customers that are just ticking over and bringing you revenue in. So number 5, what helps, support, advice, connections, anything that you need?
Just the getting that the DIN number and researching the different options within Google and Apple, I think, to work on their pricing and subscription versus the one-off.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, send the questions. I'll send it out to our developers and they'll come back with something, I'm sure.
Yep, no worries. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That sounds really exciting.
Are you looking at someone else? Did you say my name? Did you say my
Alex?
Alex, yeah.
Sorry. Couldn't hear you.
It's your first indication that you're actually cross-eyed. Nobody knows where you're looking.
I've just done this on the spot because I haven't really had much time to look at this. I haven't spoke to any customers, so that's 0. 3 things that I've learned so far this week. I've learned I need to automate the process of receiving job information and also scheduling, because at the moment it's sort of just all in my head and it's getting a bit messy.
Don't just wait for it.
So I need to automate that, have like a calendar of when jobs are due and when they were booked in, that type of
So
thing.
this is automating scheduling. Is it for warehouses and?
So it's for production, design production. So I design timber for houses.
Design production for
Custom
houses.
frames, yeah.
There is a program Dog used on that's Monday.
Yeah,
It's very expensive. It's about $30 a month or something, but it's not too bad.
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
But I was thinking maybe like a portal or something where the client can just log in and put all their info in there, and that's just there, ready to go.
So last week we were looking at kind of the problem that you're solving and who you're solving it for.
Yeah.
So who's your customer? Like who's going to be paying for and using this app?
The fabricators are my customers, the people who build the frames and trusses.
People who build the what?
Frames and trusses.
Frames and trusses. And what's the problem that they're facing at the moment that they would need this product?
Well, there's a lot of, if their their capacity is limited to their design, to the amount that their staff can do, and if they have more work coming in, then that's where I come into it and I'll pick up that extra work. And there's a lot of time that goes into training a new staff member and things like that.
So is it that they need more skilled workers in a sort of just in time?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So they need people who've got the skills to do the work, but they're limited by the stuff they've currently got and the amount of work that they've currently got on, which means that work comes in they can't take on board. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. So how did you identify the problem?
I actually used to work in a factory who used to, well, they still do design and manufacture frames and trusses, and I didn't want to work there anymore.
So your work, was it a problem that you faced, or was it a problem that other people in the factory faced?
It was a problem that I faced because I did all the design, so I was the only one doing it, and I'd work weekends or work till midnight getting work done.
Yeah, right. And so what is the cause of that problem? Is it just a lack of people with the right skills?
I'd say so. I think there was only like 3 people in the office, and if they were to put an extra person on, then there wasn't always enough work to justify it. So it would be good during the busy times, but then they sort of didn't really need them when it wasn't busy.
Yeah. So with the customer interviews, the purpose behind it was to kind of really understand where the problem sits, who experiences it, how deeply is it felt, is it something that people really need solving and want solving, and something that they would pay for. With the customer interviews, who are the people that you would need to be talking to make sure that you've got a problem that is really deeply felt, that people really want solving, and that people would pay to have solved?
The customer interviews would be the fabricators, the owners of the businesses that manufacture the trusses and frames.
Yeah. And what about the designers? What about people with your skill set?
Their staff, you mean?
Sorry?
That would be their staff, like their staff.
So for you, there was a problem with the way that the company was running. In that, it sounded like you were just way overworked.
Yeah.
Are there people in your position or people with your skill set who would want to do that sort of just-in-time work and contract work?
Got no idea.
Like you mean other drafts people sort of thing?
Sorry?
You're talking about other drafts people that come in and help out as well.
Yeah, exactly. What I'm basically trying to get to is like, where would you start with kind of customer interviews and where would you start with understanding the problem? So what's really helpful is that you have already experienced the problem. It's not great for you, obviously. Like that was a real issue in your last workplace, but it does mean that you've got experience about what the problem feels like, how you experience it, when you experience it, and who's there experiencing it with you. So in terms of the idea that you've got, so you've got kind of an idea for a solution, which is around automating this design production, which seems like there's a kernel of a solution there. What would be really interesting is to if you can go and talk to kind of fabricators and owners and their design staff about what that's like. You might have to be a little bit careful so that you're not sort of going in going, what do you hate about your job? So there's going to be some balance there. But it seems like to me that you've got a clear understanding of the problem in the business, the fabricators, the owners and the staff. But in terms of the designers, the supply side, so who would come in and do this for you? Are there people in your position, people with your skill set who are also kind of looking for work? You've actually got a double-sided solution. So part of it is for the factories, and then the other part is actually for the on-demand staff. And what is it that they're looking for? So I think that would be a really interesting thing to kind of do some customer interviews around about how people feel about it, what they would be interested in. Like if, other staff members in those factories might want to work like you or would prefer to work. That might be an interesting question to be asking as well.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Is the business, so when you're talking about business owners that are doing the trusses, doing the sheds and houses, is it kind of like an all or nothing business? So if they've got 2 houses or 2 sheds that they've got to do, there's a lot of design to happen in a short space of time, and then they might have nothing again. That's a pretty big job, I would imagine, to draft up, that sort of detail.
It's not too bad. Like it takes maybe 1 hours, 4 to 5 hours.
Oh, okay.
I think because what happens in the system, because I used to work in council, it's that they have generally most school holidays off, and then they'll come back to work, and then they so nothing happens for that Christmas period. And then they all come back, and then everything gets approved within 2 or 3 weeks. So the builders are sitting around for 6 weeks kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sitting on their backsides waiting to get council approvals. And then all of a sudden they come back, and then they get all these approvals get out, and it's everything gets approved together. So that's my understanding. A lot of it.
So it is a bit like all or nothing. So council approves like 30 or 40 designs of houses, and people want them in a week.
Yeah, council a lot of times used to hold up.
I'm not surprised. So you're outsourcing, you're the outsourced post for that access.
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, council might be an interesting one to talk to as well. I don't know how much you've worked with them directly, but about what it is that they're doing or thinking when they're approving everything in one go. And how that could work. But it sounds like there's a sort of supply chain, supply and demand issue going on, and maybe kind of a stakeholder map. I think it's in module 2. But stakeholder map might be interesting for who you need to be talking to, because it seems like there's a lot of players in what's causing the issue around the design, around the skills shortage, the kind of feast or famine issue, that could be interesting for how you work together with those people to solve it for everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway. So what's your focus for this week, Alex?
At the moment, this week I've actually got a new employee, so I'm trying to train her up, and that's ongoing.
I was going to ask you whether, because last time I remember you saying you were looking for something, so you've got someone.
Yeah.
Great. Well, is that lady with the dark hair?
Yep.
Excellent. Is she full time?
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm just focusing on training her at the moment,
You
and
need to dump that
Yeah.
brain into her brain.
Yeah.
Get all that stuff in.
and then developing the service that I've got with the current clients.
So what's your current service?
So I'm servicing 4 different factories at the moment.
Have you looked into platforms like Airtask?
That like scheduling.
No, it's actually where you can post your skills, and people who are looking for those skills can just come and it's actually an Australian platform.
Yeah, I looked at Upwork. I think that's
Upwork I think is an American.
Yeah.
Is that right? But Airtask is based in Sydney.
Okay.
So companies want something that's a little bit more local.
Yeah.
The fact that you're in Bathurst, you might draw some odd work.
Is it like LinkedIn? Is it?
No. It's actually Airtask. So it's kind of like a job sharing platform. So you post your skills up there, or you post you want a job. So I've used them in Sydney when my daughter was moving house because she was 3rd floor live. And I wasn't, me and my husband weren't going to carry lounges and fridges downstairs. So I just employed 2 people for an hour on Airtask.
So it's like I need a specific job
I
done.
need a specific job done.
Right, oh,
Yeah. But people can also post their skills on there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a two-way street. So it's really it's an outsourcing thing. But I was just wondering if you put your skills up there, if that would draw some more, because you're highly specialised, obviously, and to fill that gap in, if there's works happening through Sydney and they're needing it to fill that overflow.
Especially if it's it's an out of the box situation or something you're filling in where they don't feel they have to take you on permanently or anything. It's just like, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And then you get a reputation for going in troubleshooting, and then you'll be back to working.
Yeah.
Alex, can I ask you a question? So you're obviously already running a very successful business. You've just taken on someone new. The business is growing. Are you doing the caffeine course to see if there's just throw all the bits in the air and see if there's another way of doing it, or do you know what I'm just interested in? Because you're obviously, it's obviously the work is there, and it's growing, and you, I think you mentioned an app. Like, are you looking at, you're looking at developing a platform for customers to put information into to streamline? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, I was thinking that earlier this week. I thought surely there's an easier way to do this, so maybe that might be the thing. But coming into caffeine, no, I didn't really have anything in mind. I just thought I'd see what would happen.
Yeah, no, I'm just interested because you're obviously steaming along. There's the work there. You've obviously got enough work that you're taking on new staff. That's great. I just wondered if there was another angle you're coming from with the business to try and.
No, it's sort of just to, I don't know, see what the steps are and getting to the next step up.
Yeah. To think about stuff.
Yeah.
About with it. No, it's good. I mean, it's so healthy.
It sounds like it's been a brainstorm for a concept that might come out.
And we're guys from the business HQ as well.
Yeah, I met with Lindsay.
They're very good.
Cool. So for you then, Alex, what sort of help or support or advice or connections do you need, or are you still in the kind of discovery phase?
Yeah, I think I'm still in that discovery phase. I don't really need any connections, or I suppose advice is always good, but I don't really know what I need there either.
It might be worth going through the first one of the course, and then just as you're kind of going through, I'm just going in and kind of checking in with that work. But it's a bunch of exercises to just structure your thinking about what you currently know and what you currently don't know about your product. And it will get what's in your head out. And it sounds like there's a lot in your head that could come out as your problem statement, what you know about your customers already. And I'd be happy to kind of take a look at the work that you're doing there, and that might just be a good way to start. And customer interviews, you just can't beat them. They're so good.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Julia? Julie. Sorry.
Yes, customer interviews are fabulous, and the one thing I learned this week, I did 3 customer interviews this week. And the one thing I learned is that when you interview people you know, you have this ability to already answer questions on behalf of that customer, even though you get it wrong. You have misassumed what they're going to say, and that was probably the biggest learning, because you kind of think, oh, I know what you're going to say, I know what you're going to do. And I interviewed Maria. I'm making, for those of you who can't remember, the memorial books for people. So I spoke to Maria here because I've done a bit of work for her family and taken some photos before, and I know she makes her own photo books. And I just thought she would, and she's very technically apt, as we all know, and I thought she would never be interested in using my service. So I kind of assumed what she would say, and she said, no, I'd happily use your service for special stuff. I can do the ordinary everyday books for my kids at school and whatever, but if I had something special, that's where I'd go to you for. And I thought, well, that's it. You know, I just had that little light bulb moment of like, don't assume what people are going to say. So that was a good lesson, and I think the lesson there is I need to speak to people I don't know because you talk to people you know, and and they know you too. They know the skills that you have. So I need to sort of step out that, and I'm on the way of doing that. So I've contacted funeral directors, and I've got an interview, or I'm chatting to one of them next Monday. I've got a chance to go down and talk to them. They were obviously a bit cagey, feeling like they've just been sold something, and so I'll have to go in and take some sample. But yeah, it was interesting. I hate the hard sell. I hate ringing up cold. And you've got to do it. But I just, anyway, so that was interesting. So I pushed myself there, which was good. I'm waiting on a call back from one of the other funeral directors, which I don't hold my breath on. I'll have to chase them down a bit. But what I did learn from the second funeral director that I contacted was that they had been presented to in the last month about someone had come and done a big flashy presentation about memorial books. So that was really interesting to learn that there's stuff happening in the market.
Yeah.
And so when she talked about big and flashy, I automatically thought big Sydney company coming into Bathurst. So I pushed the whole, I'm local. So yeah, so that was interesting. But I mean, they may have been local too. She didn't say they weren't local, but I just assumed when they were big and flashy, they were somewhere from your neck of the woods, Alice. So once again, assuming, see, make these assumptions. So the other interesting thing I learned was I spoke to Lachlan. Lockie and I interviewed each other, which was good. Once again, someone I know. But he talked about an opened a kettle of fish, which we have talked about a bit around family history, and that, you know, memorial books are great for people that have passed away, but people are interested in their ancestry and ancestry.com. And he said to me, I have got a box under my bed, literally, of all this memorabilia and photos and letters. And he said, I would love you to do something with that for me. And he said, I know the family would be happy to put money in to do it. So we sort of explored that. We talked through that as another business opportunity, which we've spoken about in here. There's nothing new about that. But it was just interesting to talk about him, his family, literally the box sitting under the bed that's just gathering dust, and how much he would value doing something with that. So I guess I just keep being pushed into, there's the bigger aspect of, it's not just a memorial book, but it's photos, and how do people manage their photos and how they value them, and how I can value add with that. So he was, I was hoping to speak to him today about what feedback he got from his family about whether people were prepared to put some money into that. So that was good. And then the other thing that happened was that when James saw the book that I made last week, his nana is turning 90 next week, and Kath, his mum, has been on to him, can you make a book for me? Because James could obviously make a book in a heartbeat, but he's time poor and all the rest of it. So Kath has asked me to make a book. So since seeing you, I've actually made her a book for her mother's 90th. So I've actually literally gone through the process of getting the photos, making the book, showing previews, making changes, and I ordered them on Monday night. So that was good. And it was interesting there, because I would assume that a family like James's family wouldn't need my services, because they've got young, James is very capable, a bit like Maria, they're very capable people and could do it, but they just don't have the time. So I think that's where I'm sort of learning that my customers aren't necessarily the dottery-old 75-year-old that can't even get online and would need my help to do it, but there are young, active families that are super busy and just don't have the time. So, and are prepared to pay for something that's really special. So it was good. That was a good process to go through. So that's been, that's probably been the biggest learning, is that, and that's down to your customer interviews again, Alice, like you make these assumptions and your assumptions are not always correct. So that's been my week, I guess, in a nutshell.
That's really interesting. It does sound like there's something in less memorial books and just special books.
Yes, yes, yes.
I don't exactly brand that, but that does seem to be, the like what it is that people are saying to you. It's really interesting.
I mean, the other value that you're adding is that Kath gave me a series of photos that I put into the book. I went through all the photos, tweaked them, and I presented them back to her on a thumb drive. So she now has not only a book that they'll be getting in next week, but they've got all those photos, some old photos like from the late 1800s that I've gone in and just brought back to life, so to speak. And now they have them in high resolution. They could go and print them and put them on their wall if they wanted to. So they're getting, it's just, the other thing is I love doing it, and I know this might sound a bit trite, but I feel like for James, I'm preserving his family history, with this, Catherine said, I know the people in the book, but James wouldn't know the people, the older people in the front of the book. So it was, I guess what I'm saying there is I love doing stuff that makes me feel good about what I do, and I really enjoyed it, and I felt like I was honouring his nan, and I mean, obviously I know these people, but there was some nice sort of feelings around that for me, which was good. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
What are you focusing on this week?
Sorry, what was that, Alice?
What are you going to focus on this week?
Oh, I'm going to focus on the grief. We keep talking about these bonds of grief, and I'm really interested to explore whether not the process of making a book, but whether books would help people healthily process grieving. And I'm speaking with a psychologist friend on Monday about that. So I've got another meeting on Monday about her experiences around that and grief. And so, and I think you were, Alice, you mentioned there were some people maybe in the UK that I could access around grief. Anyway, I'm interested in, I just think the whole grief, processing of grief, and if these books can be a healthy way of doing that, I think that's a great selling point.
Yeah, no, definitely. And send me a message. So my friend who's a psychologist, she had a baby this morning, so she's probably.
Oh, did she? Oh, what did she have?
Huh?
What did she have? Well, you don't know.
Just called Neve.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Neve.
Yeah, she was my connection into the psychology community. But my partner did a psychology PhD, but not clinical. But he also got connections to psychologists, so people who are on his course. So send something over. I'll see what I can.
Yeah.
My best connection is just given birth. So.
Sorry, just message while you're breastfeeding. Surely you can do two things at once.
Shuffle the doctors and nurses out of the room.
So that's, and there's lots of stuff on grief. Lots of podcasts. I mean, you sent me through a couple of links, Alice, and there's, the internet, like anything. Could spend your life researching it and not get anywhere, but there's lots of stuff. I'm really keen to delve into that because it gives me such a strong angle that I haven't really thought through before. So, so that's probably, and the money side of things is interesting too. Just the pricing, how you price what you do and what I'm doing and what I'm offering. Because I always tend to come in at the lower end, and I think sometimes the issue with what I do is people don't see the work. It's probably a bit like what you do, Alex. They just see this final drawing and they think, how did that take you 5 hours? I don't know. Why would they know? They don't do it. They don't understand the time that goes into creating it. So I guess I love that sense of over delivering, or what's that? So they get value for money. Yeah, but they get value for money. They look at it and think that was worth 500 or whatever it is, but sometimes it's hard you do lots of work that can't be seen, and
there's a lot of admin stuff behind it.
yeah.
There's a lot of creative stuff that goes into that.
Yes.
You're obviously very creative, so there's a lot of creative skill that goes into that as well.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
I'm just thinking, if you've got a website and you put a little thing up as well, and say, look, I love doing it. This is what's involved, and I'm really pleased to do it. That's why you don't have to do all this.
Yeah.
So you're actually giving them a chance to, without you presenting it one after the other, you've actually got the rationale behind it. And they get a sense of you too.
Yeah.
You couldn't help it first through the screen.
Well, I like that sense of maximising. It's like maximising the potential of what they've got, because people can lay out photos in an hour on a photo. There's photo software that you can do it. It does it for you. Put the photos in, bang, 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 job done. But you're tweaking, you're choosing backgrounds. There's all that stuff you don't even know that you're doing. And then it was quite funny. I'll tell you this little story. Kat said to me, she said, "Oh, there's a girl in this photo that could you just get rid of? Could you take her out?" And she said, so she's standing on the end. And I said, "Oh, sure, I'll just pop in the photo, like that'll be fine." Except when I looked at the photo, the girl was in the back row and then the front row is wider, so I can't, and it's a family photo, so obviously everyone else is important. So I said to Kath, "Sure." So I've had to recreate this bookcase. Who's standing next to the girl, I've had to recreate, like he's been pixelated, I've had to recreate his shoulder, like it was just, you just end up doing this stuff. And it's that kind of like, do you mind just doing this? And it's fine. I mean, I love people to be happy, but it all takes time. So I guess that's and I want people to be happy. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I fiddle. I'll just keep fiddling, and it's time. So I kind of need to find that balance of.
Is there a thing like when you're building, there's a variation? So like variations cost a bit more.
Yeah,
so
I'm trying to look, because I think there's the potential, particularly for memorial books, there's potential for people to become quite anal, for a better word, because this is a lasting, so that's not right and this is not right, and keep changing and whatever. So I think what I'm looking at this point, and I need to speak to customers about this, about what they think, but there's two opportunities to change as part of the cost, and then if you're making more changes, and not when I say like multiple changes at one time, but if you're making then more changes, there's a cost attached to that, and which is fine if they want more changes, but it's just time, and time is money, I guess. So that's sort of how I'm. Because sometimes people don't know what they want until they see it, and they think, I don't like that, or I do like it. So it's sort of managing that. So anyway, that's.
Judy, can I just say something? While you were saying that to me, having done the Maria Kondo says that the hardest thing for people to do is to do with their photos and all those bits and pieces. It's a miscellaneous. And whereas everything in my house is tiny, I don't like things under the bed. I've got boxes, not massive boxes of photos. I've got 25 albums. I've got, this is ridiculous, but it's important things. I did scrapbooks for kids, and where I took a lot of things that this doesn't matter, this really does matter. And I would love help to get the important things out and be able to cull, because I've got the psychology in my head about where she says if you travel, you only want one view of the mouth and you don't need 20 photos. It's the same as the thing. So I would love to think that I could go to somewhere and say, look, I've got this problem and you might help me cull out this, because you don't want to you don't want boxes of people's things, but guide you into the psychology of, okay, you understand the Maria Kondo, you can't get this, but maybe have coffee table books done for the kids, and they don't have to, because you know what they would do? They would take the albums and they would go into the bin because they're chuckers. And rightfully so, whereas I'm getting a little box together of important things from my past. Say, look, so in the bottom drawer on the right hand side of my desk, just go there and everything you need is there. And it's the same with this, to get rid of these before the important things have gone, because then I can come through.
Well, I think there's definitely, and that's the biggest stuff too, is just managing our images. We take more photos than we've ever taken before. They're on our phones, they're in the cloud, they're everywhere. We rarely print them. And there's a whole, I know, and people just being just there's photos in sort of multiple locations, and photos are precious. Like they're really precious to people. They're moments and memories.
You can't keep them all.
You can't keep them all, but you attach to them. Like, how do you throw? I don't know how I would physically throw away a picture of my child. I feel like it's crazy, but it's like it's a
it could be one of a million covered in spaghetti.
That's right. But anyway, but you know, potentially there's a room for that to become the Marie Kondo specialist in photo, managing your photos and maybe
workshops for you,
yeah,
helping people. You help people workshop how they're going to deal with it.
I can see a workshop with, you know, after your holiday. Because, you know, if people came along and had that focused time and they paid to just sit and get some organisation, because it's always the last thing you'll ever do. No, second last. It's claiming the insurance of what I've lost, broken, etc. But yeah, the photos, because you had the holiday and you're tired and you don't get back. But if you could get a connection with, say, like Flight Centre or whatever, so people that know they're going on holidays, here's a service I do. You get back. 4 weeks later, we sit down.
Well, you're right. I think you're right. And it's interesting. A friend of mine did a macrame course on Sunday, and the idea was, and I think, you know, macrame, those knot things. I would never. Anyway, hanging thing. It's very 70s.
They're very trendy with the African.
That's right.
Tribal. Yeah.
But she did it, and she said it was great because they went there, they dedicated it, like it was 5 hours, and they finished. The idea was you started it and you finished it on that day. And maybe that's what you could say to people: come to this workshop, you bring the photos, and by the end of that time, we will have finished your book, sent it off, and ordered and done.
Well, you've solved the problem. There's your problem.
You solve the problem, and that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Can you run one about insurance claims too?
Yeah. Anyway, I think there's, because people love, I mean, I find it with myself. I could spend my whole life making photo books of my family. Honestly, I could, because I love it. But I'd never do anything for my family because I never had the time, and it's everyone else's next priority, which is fine. But yeah, if you could gift yourself the time to create something for your family, I mean,
And what's good about that too is because you're working around supporting people with grief, you want some balance for you where there's all the happy, and then like a more solemn and more serious. So that gives you more longevity.
Yeah, that's great.
I do think that there's a lot of kind of great solution ideas there that you could be playing around with. Yeah, I think you are still in the problem thing, but I was just thinking about what you were talking about with pricing, and it's what I was talking to Tim about just before. It basically is storytelling. Pricing. And if you can explain very well, you know, what it is that you're giving to people, whether they're seeing the work in the workshop or whether they're not seeing the work and they're giving you the products at the end, giving you the photos and you giving them the products at the end, that telling that story really, really well is what will allow you to charge a reasonable price for the product. So I think that's something that I can work with. So when you're doing the customer interviews as well, the words that people are using, the phrases, the way that they're explaining themselves, the way that they're explaining the problem, all that sort of stuff you can kind of pull into your storytelling. It'll help you make your solution richer and make it more relevant, but there's also that thing around it's a special book. It's something really different. It's not your standard, you know, picture, but there's all that sort of language that you can pull into your storytelling. And that's a way of justifying the price and of explaining to the person what it is that they've got so that they value it as well. Harder in a service business, and I'm sure Alex, you'll find this as well, that when you're providing something that creative work, people don't tend to value unless they are actually in a creative industry, which is a very big frustration, I know, for kind of creative minds. But the storytelling piece, I think, will be really good. Bless you.
Thank you.
I think one of the things, it's just what came up in my mind, that, you know, about that perceived value. With the idea of people coming back from a holiday, they can spend $5,000 to $10,000. And for the price of what you're giving them, they get to keep it.
They get to relive it and share it.
So, you know, if you go back from that 10% thing.
Well, I'm finding, I think that I'm sort of coming to a point where I think I really want to provide a high-end product because that's what it takes to create it, and there probably needs, I'm not saying a high-end price tag, but there needs to be, it's got to be worthwhile, I guess, for my time. And anyway, but that's good.
You've got lots of stuff.
But at Age University, we came to me as a word of people that you might go and talk to as a group.
Yes. I've come across them through another project I'm doing as well. So yeah.
Just join on the table, thanks.
Excellent. Anyway, enough time on me. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for all your help.
So, but what's your do you need any kind of help or support, advice, connections?
No, I'll email you. Look, I'm really keen to explore that, the grief, the bonds of grief. I'll email you specifically about that, Alice. My focus is that, and also be really interesting to actually get into those funeral directors and try and see, what they think and their thoughts about the viability of the book, and definitely trying to find out more about that. The person, the flashy presenters, find out who they are and shoot them down.
Are you with Lost Town?
What was the flash about?
What was that, sorry?
And what was so flashy about them? And
I don't know. That's right. That's just
You didn't have a company name.
No, I didn't. I didn't speak to. It's all about speaking to the right person, I guess. And she was the receptionist. Not that that's not the right person, but I'll do some digging there and see what I can do. Yeah.
It's just good to get a good relationship.
Well, it's got it with the thing I've been holding back with meeting with funeral directors is that ultimately I'm wanting them to refer clients onto me. So then it's like, do I go into business? Like, is it a business arrangement? So I'm just trying to. I've sort of been hesitant until I'm clear in my head on what that could be. But we'll see.
I don't think so. I think it should just be like they have a stack of your business cards on wires, similar to like peasant peace. They have all their wires at the vets. If they don't get anything, the vets don't get anything.
I know, but no, you're right. It's like a service, and that's what I've got to keep changing in my head, that I'm offering people a service. It's a service that they can't necessarily do themselves. It's not just a business or a sale. Yeah.
Value for people. So Andrea.
Well, we thought, how about we do Carolyn, because every time otherwise we're going to follow on from each other and we kind of cross over. So maybe Carolyn can do hers first. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. Karen, how are you going?
Andrea said to me, why don't you do, because basically I'm not doing and following through on what I spoke about last week. And the great thing is that I discovered after a conversation that there were some areas of that would involve too much work for me. And it's a creative zone that I'm stepping it aside at the moment. And that creativity can come up as I build my house and do other things. And what I actually realised is that a couple of things I need about the styling is my pricing structure. I need to work that up. I need to have redo my vision statement on it, and then just park that for a while. Because when I did my vision and my purpose, I did it on personal development. And basically the area that I really want to work on to get workshops up and going is primarily in personal development, NLP, etc. So in feeling uncomfortable about moving forward with that, and knowing that I really did, people come to me and ask me and I'll take on the project if I want to. So I didn't want to go out and interview en masse for something that I didn't see as a big thing I wanted to open up for myself. So,
and is that the design?
Yeah, because I do that, but it's just like getting my pricing right up. They were the primary things that I wanted to do, and just redo my vision statement and know that as I build my house, which I'm about to do, and fortunately I had a conversation with Ashley about I want light and energy. Great. So we spoke around that. So, it's just like over the last 2 weeks I've got that in order and I've got the right person to start with that project.
It's a nice combo too.
It is a nice combo.
Too.
So what happened, because I was feeling uncomfortable, I had a conversation with Andrea and we both kind of decided together, let's just do an MVP and explore the product potential of what we passionately want to do. And so we had a great day yesterday afternoon. We went into the boardroom, and at the end of the day, I scribbled all over the board. Andrea fed in, I fed in, and we were pretty excited by the end of the afternoon because we were seeing a minimum viable product, and it was about the communication model of NLP and what derivatives come from that. And basically over here said, let's have a health check on what you need if you're going to do all sorts of things in life. And Lindsay came in and said, oh, my wife's done NLP, she was a practitioner. So we had all these connecting things happening and said, we would like to do a presentation for who want to come along to look at you know, look at their communication and what's happening as they, you know, starting a business. And we then looked at things like.
Oh, hang on. Before that, we even went into. We came into the meeting, the lunchtime meeting.
That's
So
right.
we were
That's
starting
right.
to hear problems and
Yes.
procedural things.
Yes, we were. That's right. Absolutely. So then, after we put problem to be solved, then we sort of started to relate back to the communication model, and don't want to talk too much about that now, but we would put out a little blurb to say, look, this is what we're going to do, a workshop, and we're going to start with the communication model, and who would like to come along? We'd like people to come along and just, you know, be present to it.
Thought we might interview you.
And then somehow connecting it back. And then I went back, you'll be impressed with this. Michael Hall, who's one of the big gurus of NLP,
no, it's a lie.
creates solution.
He's absolutely amazing.
He is amazing. And then I opened the chapter, Learning to Love Your Problem. So basically, we're looking at that in relation to us and to feeding in to what we're doing and what people are doing and putting it together in a, you know, an NLP model creatively.
Neurolinguistic programming. Sometimes people say psychology. How your brain works,
Okay.
basically.
All right.
Like little conversations in your head
Yeah.
that aren't real.
What do you think?
And your program.
What do you think you think?
Yeah.
And your program and how we behave. as humans.
And the problem is never the problem.
Right.
No problem.
So with that being the case, what is the problem? What is the customer? Has it changed from last week?
Sorry, I'm not understanding that, Alex.
Has the problem and the customer.
Okay. Yes, it has, because the whole,
Yeah.
for me, my whole focus has changed from styling to do as a prototype, and turned it back to using personal development, which is when I came in. That was my focus. That's what my mission and vision statement were about.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the problem has changed.
Yeah. So who's the customer who's feeding the problem?
Who's the customer? So basically now it was like the customer hadn't really. I knew who my clients were with and customers for styling. Okay, so that's all behind me now, beside me at least. So now the customers will be. Is that what you're asking me, or the problem? I'm sorry. The customers. The customers will be.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, both the customer and so who's paying for the product when you have your product ready, and what problem does it solve that they're currently experiencing?
The customers still haven't fully established who the customers are going to be. That's after we do the program. We were doing that first. Getting something up, making something happen to get an enthusiasm, then starting to work out who's the customer. It could be schools, it could be teachers in schools, it could be businesses. There's a whole gamut of places that it could be. It could be the general public who, when we use a medium of advertising, that they come to workshops that will be, you know, something that we'll put together as marketing. I'm fumbling because we haven't put the customers in there first. We got the product, and the customer's going to be, it's going to be humans out there who want to come in to understand a little bit of applied psychology, who might be stuck in certain areas, and we will put our marketing together so that it has a potential for gathering a particular. Andrea almost needs to be here feeding in this, because we spoke about doing, first of all, starting to do these workshops together, and then being able to do individual workshops.
Sorry.
It's like getting this model up and going as a applied psychology, neuro-linguistic, personal development, helping people. One derivative I would have of it would be How to Present, which is a program I've done, which all the marketing's all online, Michelle Bowden, how to start the 13 linguistic steps to do a presentation. So it means that getting this model up, first of all, of what's a viable model, finding some people to market to, and I'm a bit stuck in this because I am a bit, because it's like Alice has said, who is your target market
For what?
for the NLP that we're talking about.
Oh, look, it covers very wide.
Everyone with a
It
brain.
depends.
Yeah, exactly.
We keep getting back to about schools. Yeah.
Teachers.
Teachers, for sure, and students at various transition points. A lot, because there's a lot of ongoing problem around resilience, bullying, the ability of families to not cope. What was that great quote about kids are the corks bobbing on
Up and down
on the family
parents'
waves, you know, the
anxiety levels.
So it's our problem is about narrowing it down so that a workshop or a day, whatever, can be part of an ongoing program in a way, I think, because you can't solve all the problems and you won't even build in the mechanisms in one go. I think there's a place for going through a process over a few weeks. So there's parents, there's teachers. I was just brainstorming here, clearly schools, and that's what I have to do, go to schools. I've sort of pinched you. Yeah, no. But going to schools, well, both of us will be working together on this, going to different schools, easily 10 to 12 in this area straight away, high schools, and especially high schools that don't get people visiting them, like Mudgee or Dubbo or whatever, and going to the staff development days, getting course material into the staff development days, and then that way into the classrooms later. So
that staff development days, is that to go in and understand from the teacher's point of view what their pain points are, what they're struggling with in terms of those transitions?
Yeah, I think
Asking those questions.
the staff development day, you could do some of that, but I think you'd run out of time if you just spent it. I think you do a pre-one, which would be to go to one of their staff meetings to introduce yourself, get some ideas going, so that you've kind of prized the lid off. And I think knowing, as long as you get the principal out of the room, you get great feedback. I mean, I've been a teacher for a million years, and once you pop the cork, yeah, so it'd be a process, I think, but my assumption that if you can get them, if you can have some conversations early, if you can get yourself into a staff meeting, then if you can get into the day, the training day, what most teachers hate is the waste of a day that they feel they could be doing something else with. Yeah.
So who's going to pay for this course?
Well, that's our issue. We've got to find out.
So you're talking about Department of Education?
Well,
Not sure about that.
we don't. We have to look at that. What we know is it's really valuable stuff in schools. We have to work out how to get paid. So one of
this would be valuable in schools.
That's right. One of the things that's that discovery thing, going and talking to deputies, talking to in that social worker kind of concept where you've got counsellors, etc. Going and seeing where's their funding and what you can do about that.
So you're obviously looking at forward-thinking parents.
Yes,
because there would be a lot of parents that go, that's a bit too weird for my child. So you would be.
Well, you want to be able to have a session with parents. It's great if you can have the same language, so the kids have the language. I coach separately from what we're doing here. I'm coaching a girl at the moment, and I make sure that any language I have in my coaching session goes home. I have a conversation with mum. I had it before, and every time I touch base with her and send stuff home that relates to what we were saying, and she's doing her own process along with the daughter. So it's not the hot, it's cold.
No,
Yes, and really getting good results. So groups of parents relating to it, and teachers understanding the language that the kids are getting. Yeah.
And you guys are saying that you were both teachers for a long time. Are there people in your network that you could just call up for a half-hour chat and ask them about?
Yeah. And JSAs, we both work with Shoreway and Berto. Job seekers.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be something we need to find out about.
Yeah.
We need to find out about in the money section about grants. Or we go and we say we're presenting a program. They've got money to put together programs, and we basically did some of this at Berto. So it's like, and we had very good results. We had very good results from the client, but we didn't have such brilliant results for the staff who were just wanting, like, you know, bums on seats.
The outcome.
The outcome, but we were getting great feedback and really progressing there. So, and we weren't even in an organised model like we're talking about now, are we? We're talking about
Well, the
putting it
same
together.
principles were there.
Same principles were there. Yeah.
So, you know, it's about monetizing it, and because our background is teaching, where you can be brilliant at what you do, and I'm sure I've ticked the box for both of us. We're brilliant at what we did, but someone else is paying the bill. Like, you get your money from the government, and they employ you as a teacher, and you're either brilliant or not brilliant or somewhere in between, but you get the same pay. So we've got to find a way for an urgent need to be met.
With the money side, with the pricing side, is it, well, we've touched on this now twice, but there is a storytelling piece to it, and that 10x value, can you provide 10 times the value to the customer of the price that you're charging? And then I don't think
You're thinking, or you're frozen?
No, she's sorry, you just froze up there for a second.
You said
You were
10x value.
thinking. You were thinking.
After 10x value, everything froze.
Oh no. The 10x value, the reason I was bringing that up is that it doesn't matter if you're working with teachers who are very...
No, you've just frozen up again.
Oh no. Am I still frozen?
No, I'm frozen.
No, it's been happening intermittently throughout the whole session.
Oh no. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
It's okay, it's only just been really
We
quick.
can hope. It's all
So,
good.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, with the weather. Internet's cold.
But when you say the 10x value, are you talking about what the school pays and then their return on the investment?
Yeah, so if you were, for example, there's a bunch of exercises in the course, so I won't go through in great detail, but the idea of it is, if you can save somebody, say, 2 days of planning time, so you can save a teacher 2 days of planning time, or you can save them X amount of hours working with a difficult parent, for example. What is that value to the teacher? So with Tim's product, it's actually quite simple, because it's financial to financial. $30 of that to X amount of
Hang on a second, sorry. Somebody forgot this.
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
With what you're providing, the value is different, so it needs to be calculated differently, but you can still do that. You can kind of estimate a monetary value, so it might be days saved and how much is a teacher paid a day. It's not great because, as you say, teachers are paid a flat rate, but you can talk about the pain. So
It's always the pain. It's always the pain. It's the frustration of not being able to do your job.
Yeah.
When things are going wrong, and kids are the moving parts in the machine, like the cogs. And if we can have the cogs running better, the day goes better in school. So we've got to get to their pain point. And
what I'm talking about with kind of identifying that, and in terms of the money, is that with teachers, like you're saying, they're paid a flat rate. They're not kind of paid on performance, which means that's a little bit less of a relevant thing to kind of Tim's customers, whose financial well-being is dependent on their use of the app. So it's a different proposition. But what could be interesting is to essentially go to where the money is, and go and talk to principals, talk to people who are in control of those school budgets about what their pain points are in terms of, if you're going specifically around transitions, which might be a really interesting to look at. So you will need to talk to teachers, you will need to talk to students, and as Julia found out, your assumptions may be wrong, because you even if we've known someone for 30 years, they might actually have a different perception of it, or things change, or if schools change. So really, really worth testing. But if you're testing with the people who hold the money, then they're the gatekeepers. That's how you'll do your storytelling for your pricing. That's how you'll decide on your price. That's how you'll decide on your marketing materials. So by the time you're actually getting in front of teachers, you know the route by which you're going to get paid kind of before that happens. but I think I'm still hearing that there's a lot of uncertainty, I think, around like who the customer is and what the problem is. And I think it's maybe worth just getting out and just picking a customer group and just calling your teacher friends and saying, around transitions, hang on, tell me about it. Like what's going well, what doesn't go well, what are the commonalities between that? I think that would be a really interesting and valuable exercise to do.
Yeah, I think the going from the primary to secondary, I really want to investigate that, because that's a really hard transition for young people, especially in this area, because you can be coming from a very tiny little school and you're going from a school that might have 15 kids, and you're sitting in the same classroom with kids who've already been in a big primary school in town, and then they're all going into a bigger high school, and it's just very messy. So yeah, we'll keep soldiering on and make sure that it happens.
I was going to say, when my children were at school, I was always doing everything I could to make their life more understandable of children, what have you. And I did a program called STEP, which is Systematic Training and Effective Parenting. I don't know if there are any like named programs around now, but that was just one thing, is creating a name and getting it and then marketing that. And so your marketplace is students, schools, whatever. But the other thing, with NLP, the headquarters is in Sydney, opposite, obviously, Fusion Lab, which is it's obviously opposite Wynyard, and there's a monthly meeting of women in leadership. So there's usually about 20-25 women who come along, and that's about getting an idea out, getting a project out. They might have a day then at Wesley College where you do a presentation and a full room of NLP people are invited. So you kind of get your feedback and you get yourself going. So we've got quite a few meetings, I think, when we start to look at where is our marketplace and who can we market to, how do we get it out there. But at the moment, we were wanting to get up a viable product so we could look back at that and say, what are we really marketing? And knowing that we're saying, oh, we'd like a 6-week course, we're going to start with the communication, then limiting beliefs, all the type of basic NLP things that would follow in a 6-week course. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that I would go to the customer before the product.
Yes, okay.
And understand kind of what it is that they want out of that, because it might be that 6 weeks will put people off, or they want a day, or they want it online.
That's what we do, work at a day, a week, a weekend.
There's like a core for all those things. There's a core competence program, and what I would want to ask at the schools too is how that fits in with what used to be called PDHBE. Like the health, used to be health ed.
Yeah.
So it would actually, when you talk about the pain point, if you can come in and do an hour or 2 hours, a double session with students, and the teacher can tick off 3 outcomes, it's gold.
So
And
I think that's your customer understanding of what is it that they want, what pain is it solving, and how do they want it delivered. And I think it is for you guys, I think, very much about picking your customer and then really getting to understand what it is that they're experiencing and how you might be able to help them.
Yeah, so we just got to go talk. And listen.
Can I just ask a question? But just listening to you talk, and I just think about schools, and my mind just goes, "What? How do you get in?" Like, and I know you can, but you know how to get in? Because
I was a 10 years as a teacher, and we would have what was called reflection days of reflection until they said they were too busy for it. But we would take years 11, 12, take them up to PLC, and then we would bring in people to talk to them about everything from experienced nurses through to all the things that we thought were relevant to the transitional stage that they were making in years 11, 12. And really enjoyed that. Everyone would enjoy the day that the school stopped it, because they said we haven't got enough time for it.
Money, yeah.
So, but then someone else, when I was speaking to a teacher, they said camps, like when the students go on camps, they're looking for things to motivating things also, as well as being outside if they've gone cadet camp or somewhere. So it's finding where they will slot you in.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing it probably a P&L meeting. A staff meeting.
So information before or ask the questions. Provide some information and then see who's got some uptake. And also, yeah, like their problem in the school, you don't want to come in as another problem, especially around time. You want to solve the problem in time.
You come in and be really specific about it. So that's
and
what.
they don't want to be sold. You know, we've been working in schools a lot. I'm in school right now, but they do kind of get a lot of things where people will come in and go, here's a product or here's an idea, and they'll go, oh, it's one more thing, and they've shut down immediately. So I reckon talking to your friends who are teachers is a way of getting more of that rich information, and you can just have a phone call there, even though you know them. Getting that understanding of what the problem is, and then when you're actually going into schools, I mean, we're doing a project right now. We're co-designing with teachers and students these ideas of how to get student voice into the classroom. So how students can be taken seriously, how they can design their lessons, how they can design their learning, all that sort of stuff. So really different approaches coming out. There's one school that's working with students who are completely non-verbal. It's a special school, and they've managed to do student voice with this really clever technique where they're looking to point at the toys that they want to play with, and it's transformed their behavioural problems in the playground. But there's other schools that are doing completely different things where the students are doing feedback forms at the end of each day, where the teachers are taking that and taking it into the lesson planning and programming piece. All the way to kind of the students actually designing the lessons for themselves. So there's a whole range of things there, but the interesting part of it is the co-designing with the teachers and the students on a product, because they become so excited about it, they're so invested in it. The students particularly are coming up with ideas we would never have thought of, which is a really interesting thing. So it might be something where instead of going in and pitching NLP to start off with, but you go in and go, let's design something that will solve this pain point, and you've got NLP as a tool in your toolkit that you can use and will work.
Well, especially if you've got like senior high schools where you've got a student body as well, to engage the senior students, because they've got a task to perform anyway. So to even go in on one of their meetings and say, this is stuff that's going to, like, right now and into your future. These are young people who've got a bit of a leadership edge anyway. They want to be doing it. So you're giving them a chance to see what's inside it, and they're going to support you if they want to, and rolling it out.
Andrea, when we were at Verto, did a brilliant workshop on Edward de Bono with the 7 hats.
The thinking hats.
The thinking hats. Yeah. You know, that sort of thing was a fabulous tool, not just for anyone, to get to the sense of who's got the problem, how do you solve a problem in this is a positioning that I'm taking, and then changing the positions, etc. So that was, and I'm a drama teacher. So, you know, the medium of using examples also, particularly because within NLP, one of the big things is also, a lot of big things, but there's a back. So we look at the learning styles of people, and knowing that if you visual, audio, kinesthetic, if you give them everything and get them involved in physical application of it, you've got an 80% retention. I mean, they're facts. So
and that's a sort of taster, because I can see you go into schools and you don't produce the whole thing. Yeah. It's like downstairs cutting muffins up and giving you an eighth of a muffin. So you just have that exercise in meetings like the senior students, where you do that kind of activity, and so they've got a taste of what's possible, and so they're part of it. Yeah.
Have you got a taster organised?
That's what we're doing.
How long will that taster take?
Well, we don't know yet.
Oh, you're talking about what we were going to do.
So what you're talking about now, that taster, have you, because that you can almost test the market with.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's what we intend to do.
You could have like a taster and you've got like 4 or 5 elements, you know, you just give them a taste of those 4 or 5 elements, and then at the end you get people to pick which one they would prefer. Yeah. And then of course that's the direction you go to. That is also doing some market testing as well.
Yeah.
So
that's what we did yesterday. We sort of said, let's like this is not a linear thing that we do. This is an evolution of one awareness and just about this.
So are you saying create a few of those and just workshop them?
create a tester,
Yeah.
and inside that tester, you've got, like, you talk about your muffins, you know, no one knows which muffin they want. There's about 6 or 8, 12, 50 muffins, all right? But you take a tester of what you think will be the most popular muffins in your courses, most popular topics, and you give everyone in that little tester, a little taste of it, and you make it short and sweet. I don't know how long, like how much you can condense it into. At the end of it, you say, okay, you know, if I don't know, transition is your topic, tick that box. If you would like to know more about parenting styles, tick that box. And then basically you start to work with the majority. And that gives you direction.
So where are you envisaging when you say that the test run, tester? Who are you talking about? Like parents or schools or
whoever you think might be. So I don't know. I've just, you can start anywhere. You can you were talking about starting with something here. Yeah. You know, so
we're going to do a lunchtime.
You get a lunchtime thing happening. You make your tester go for 30, 40 minutes. And at the end of that, you just go, okay, well, I've just got a form here for you, fill in your name and tick what you think you'd be interested in, gives you direction.
Yeah, actually, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Cool.
So for this week then, what's your focus?
Well, you know, at the moment we've got lots of information that we discussed yesterday, and we're just going to put roughly together, which we did yesterday, and Andrew started tonight, we want to talk to people as well, but just get a sense of what we're saying, if we came up with a lot yesterday, and then find who we want to talk to.
Yeah,
we'll
so
make that decision.
We'll start talking. What we were looking at that MVP as a way of focusing us too.
Yeah,
on
we need
if you could only do one thing, what would it be which would give maximum value to someone and tweak or whet their appetite really? Yeah. So on its own you're giving value, but you want them to go forward, if possible. So we had to have that before we could go to schools, to NDIS, to various places. I went round. I did do an interview around at the neighbourhood centre, but they don't get a lot of walk-in traffic anymore because they lost one of their clients down there. But I'm going where the client has gone. I know where she is, so I'm going there. So that would be also a good way to test, because they're the no-interest loan people. So people who are having a pretty rough trot of it, to do a free session with them about managing their emotional states around poverty or whatever, you know, just as an example, and then get the feedback from them. Was that worth it? What would you like to hear more of, or etc. So that's great. So mixing that with what we're thinking.
In NLP, there's a lot of rich language, transformational language, a lot of metaphors, a lot of things that kind of get things and messages moving quickly, like, you know, why are you going to give free rent in your head to somebody else's story that they're trying to, you know, actually anything anyone says about you is absolutely none of your business. There's kind of really quick models through of how the language that they use to try to get people like quickly snapping onto something. Does that make sense?
So we just use to make our little test sessions on those.
Yeah.
NLP statements.
You guys just have so much knowledge and so
I know, I'm in trouble.
And you just need to talk to people about what they
It's
want and what they
refining it.
need.
You know, that's what we're saying. We have to. And NLP opens, I always thought it was like 1,000-watt bulb it turns on for you, because it stops you being responsible or taking stories around it. It stops you, gets you out of the story and starts to get you into you and your own filters of life. And, you know, that's why there's so much that we have to really refine it. It's a matter of refining and understand that if somebody comes in new to this story that we're telling or this program, that we are very specific about what we want as an outcome for them as well. It's just like lead them in, tell them the story, but you're always going to send them away with a little bit of a mission towards some change that they want to make in their own life. Otherwise, I don't see the purpose of it unless we become agents of change for them through our stimulation and inspiration.
Our problem is falling into our own story at the moment.
Yeah, it is too, actually.
I think that's probably a good point, but I guess the biggest untested assumption for me for your business is still going to be who your customer is and what their pain point looks and feels like to them. Yeah. So with that final one, so what help, support, advice, connections do you need? Is there anything that you need? to go forward.
Or do you have connections with educational bodies? That's
We
an odd question, but or people who are doing something similar. People can't be everywhere. So if there are people who are already doing it in Sydney that aren't going to cross the mountains, whether you form an affiliation with people or even work with some of their stuff in schools, or I don't mind, as long as it gets done.
Yeah, I mean, if there is that, so as I say, we are working with the Department of Education, so we'd have to make sure that it, wasn't kind of stepping on boundaries or something with our clients. But put a request in writing, and we'll see what we can do, because we've got all these connections now, and we work with teachers a lot. So yeah, happy to see what we can get for you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing, Alice, is we both did training at not all different stuff elsewhere, but at Sydney Uni, at the coaching room there. And if you've got something organised or a program, they will also offer to support you in that and put you onto appropriate sites, etc. As links, I was told that.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah.
You can use anything. They'll help you. They'll troubleshoot your programs.
Yeah, and that's what also Women in Leadership's about. And that's
we just got to go out and do it.
Yes. Yeah.
But thank you. We'll get hold of you and swipe with pride if necessary. Cheerfully work together.
So that's it for me this week. What I was going to ask actually, so I think these sharing sessions are really helpful, and I'm seeing you guys kind of work with each other and connect with each other. For next week, it seems like we're ending with a little bit extra time. I know that we've got Lachlan as well. But I was wondering if it might be useful for you guys if we did a bit of a masterclass maybe on pricing or something like that. So yeah, have a chat with Maria and Gerda if Gerda, you can take the lead on this really. But have a think about what it is that you would like me to do a session on, but I'm thinking maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. Oh, there's a toilet there.
She's just
so yeah, half hour, 45 minutes, happy to kind of go through any of those. It's sounding like maybe pricing and storytelling and pricing might be a useful one for you guys, but I think the sharing thing we should still make time for at the end. I think it's really valuable, just to get everyone connected and sharing and building the network in Bathurst, because we can connect out to Sydney, but really we want the network to be built where you guys are. So just let me know, give me a couple of days to prepare, and then we can get that for you next week. Cool. So were there any other questions or things that people wanted to talk about with this session? No. That was awesome, guys. Really, really interesting, awesome progress. I'm loving how many customer interviews you're doing. Yeah, so just keep in touch through the Open Learning platform. Send me emails. Make requests for support. I'll see what we can do with our network. But yeah, aside from that, just keep going as you're going. It's been great.
Quick question, Alice. Is there anything on pricing models in the Open Learning?
Yes, let me just look up specifically which module.
Because I'll align whatever masterclass we're doing next week. I'll align that in with information.
So it's
Module 3 is business models and pricing.
Module 3 business models and pricing. Yeah, that'll definitely be the most useful one. So if you do have time to kind of go through that module, that's helpful. The other money one, which is Money and My Idea module 4, is a lot more accounting based. So it's when you've actually got something. But I think for those of you that run businesses before, it's going to be pretty basic. But the pricing modules will be helpful for just structuring your thinking around that.
I might call you sometime this week and we can discuss it.
Yeah, sounds great.
Would it be worthwhile us going through that module before the class? Like the more we do before will be helpful. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think the priority is always customer interviews at this stage.
Yeah.
So if it's a choice between a customer interview and a pricing module, do the customer interview.
Yeah.
But the pricing module, if you do get a chance just to look through, especially the kind of tips and tricks. So there's a bunch of exercises you can do around how you would estimate a price. So one is like competitor pricing, which is where you look at all your competitors and what they charge and the range and what their services are, and you do a whole matrix of what's your product price range, which works if you're entering a market with other products in it, and doesn't work if you're creating an entirely new market. But there's exercises like that they do take a long time. But if you've got something to come and discuss and talk about it, that's always kind of more practical. But yeah, we can have a session on the principles of it and techniques that you might use and ways to test, and make it relevant to what you're doing.
Great. No, that's good. That's good.
Well, thank you, everybody. Nice to see you all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have fun at school.
Thank you.
It's funny seeing those locked doors. It's padlocked doors. Silver one.
Which side are you on then?
Maria showed me how to drive it this morning. Might forget next time.
Was that recorded?
I think it is. I don't believe so.
Maria said she was recording.
Yeah.
They're chasing me.
What an mistake. So very exciting.
Yeah,
Like the guy who called Henry Anderson's son. So all these are meetings.
Yes, if you're happy, right. After today, some insights into what you're doing. Oh, good. Yes. Yeah. Do you want to, what time is it now? Do you want to make, I need probably half an hour. Yep, yep. Yep, so I don't know what your time planning is. Yep. No, that's fine, I've got to go down and, I'm going to go and see. Yep. I'm going to go home and do some work. But I can certainly, so do you want me to 12:15? Oh, yeah, that's half an hour now. Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, excellent.
Throwing things all over.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
You were in my memory.
I know, I just remember coming here, and I can't run it like that. Yeah, we were at Snuggies, yeah. But it's 12:30. Perfect, let's do that, because I've got to go and see Cameron Love down at somewhere there. Oh, yeah, so that's good. Excellent.
And you do yours.
And we'll meet. Just come and find me, I'll invite you around. Yeah.
I was thinking.
Exciting, very exciting. Very exciting.
And seeing the clarity that's coming through is really nice.
No, you keep trying. No, I was just thinking in regards to photos and like, well, yeah, you go. Oh, well, we're going to go. You've got plenty of time because we're going to go and get lunch. Did you want some lunch?
Wow, no, I didn't. Sure, I've got, yeah, sure. I've got to be back by 12:30. So
That's all right. We have time. We'll just go and do that. Yes, because Tegan's back.
They're all like good fly. All the guys are doing
Yes, I only have a lot of time. I thought Tegan, because of the split and there's no she has even with and hasn't been next year when we go and then, you know, to get a sense of her character.
yeah, it's got very couple on there. That's nice.
Oh, look, she's an attention-seeking cat. She has to get rid of the fun.
If you're happy to share, I'd be really interested to see what you've got.
Well, we'll leave our stuff here. Just take it.
Really
actually, your time. But just in case something
Ask
needs
Maria if anyone's she's nice.
There's not all of those tools. This is much amazing.
Oh, yes, that's
Creative.
Thank you.
And I think
Alright.
Australia's going to win a lot of those. Just my theory is that when she's
very
and do you
because
search
we all kind of think on like limited things that are going on.
Well,
There
it's a
can be an
difference.
assumption that
Yeah, it's the difference between a lot of stuff that happens where you're told what to do by an expert, which is external authority,
Yeah, which
coming
is
up with
good, but it's pretty good.
instead you have a set of tools.
yeah,
Very
I
think that's one of the things.
Not so the state, I mean, the value of
moving too quick.
experts in the field.
No, it's not that, but it's where's the expert for you and where's the
Yeah.
feedback, where's the moving.
And where does it fit into your unworthy position to have some of those problems? Yeah.
So, I might come in your car then.
Yeah.
You just come in the car.
Yeah, Carol's-
Is there room in the car?
Where's
Yeah,
your
so
car?
in the car.
I said, you're all right.
And you'll be back by, I'll just put it back by 12.
No, no,
Is that
we
gonna
can-
limit? Is that gonna limit?
No.
Yes,
We
we
can-
can quite back. I just thought it was going to be later on.
It's some sort of intellectual protection. In fact, one of the mentors
In fact, for some reason, we were
is IP, Felix IP lawyer. And he will be able to use the access to insights because we actually went through the patent process with an app we were developing.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's just David Killer. So he's actually a mentor up here. I'm not sure what Dave Greer will tell you. He's a local legal guy. He runs his own business, Killing Law.
He might have been the first
Probably he's actually running a concept through this.
killer.
Killing, WL. He's a wonderful man, and he's got a technical background, so he can code things, and he's got a legal business locally, and he specialises in, of course, he specialises in everything because you have to in a small town, but he knows incredible amounts about IP law. Very, very knowledgeable man. I would recommend, because I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe because you're part of the upstairs, desk.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, Mary's trying to talk to me getting the monthly subscription.
Okay.
They'll
It's
sort of
probably
keep it
worth
rolling
it
stuff.
because I believe with that monthly subscription, you get half an hour per week with the mentor. You can book it in. Now, David Killen would be charging $600 an hour to see a one-on-one. So you get half an hour, and that's $300 a week if you do that once a week. You know, what is your desk for the month? $400?
Yeah.
Like, you know, you've made your money back in two meetings with that man. So,
Yeah, and that's where I want to get into it a little bit more, but I've sort of got to get the app going. So I've got my own welding business.
okay.
So I've got my own lease block at near Orange, but it's not making any money at the moment. And the welding game is,
Have you launched the app?
no, not yet. No,
Okay, because you need to talk to David before you launch, because intellectual property protection, as soon as it's in the market, you can't protect it.
and that's
because-
why it's deliberately held off for 6 months until I get a little bit more money behind me, a little bit more knowledge. And
The moment it actually hits the app store, you can actually already have challenges.
yeah, but I'm only operating as a sole trader at the moment. I sort of want to go to a company. That's
Yeah.
one of the next steps as well. But that's another sort of everything I do is just cost money.
I know, but finding out the information up front and finding out how that will work and what you can do.
I was
And
working-
bypassing some things like, you know, half an hour session a day will be incredible.
I'll just tell you exactly what you need.
He will tell you how to protect it. He's done protection stuff.
Yeah, okay. Yes. Now that's because I know that Happy Works is way down south. Developed a stock, sort of a basic one, like a sort of a stock counting kind of one. It was $5-10 a month, but she's saying about $67,000
Our brand.
to developing it and putting the protection around it. And I haven't seen it advertised publicly since. So she spent all this money on it. But
Yeah,
I've
it's a
got
common story.
contacts down at Airlie, down at it's a farm table.
Yeah.
So it's an
Yeah.
online sort of platform that she's fantastic. She's got about 100,000 followers or something.
Yeah.
Sends out a weekly newsletter and like updates and
Yeah.
things like that. So she's almost as big as the
You
one.
can get what they call an innovation patent. So what a patent will normally do, you lock in a patent, locks it in for 20 years, lock it in around the planet, and it's yours for 20 years. They're extremely expensive. The documentation you have to draw out because it's all legal speak, it's IP speak, and it's very, very technical.
But through a little bit of that forward to Gabe and I had a 4-hour session on that stuff.
Yeah.
I was up on with a little bit, and it was very broad.
Yeah. If you've ever read a patent, have you ever read through a patent? We had an app patented, and I developed the app. So all those drawings you're doing, I understand exactly what you're doing, like your frames and all that sort of stuff. I had all of those built into the document. I had somebody write it up. I've read it. So it's just this technical spec. So there's an innovation patent. Now the innovation patent, what it does is it protects your idea preliminary on 12, 18 months, so that you can actually touch the market with it and go, yeah, okay, will this work or won't it work? That's what we did. We hit the market with the concept, all the research we've been doing around our idea, it was going to work in the market, so we developed the FFP, which was the app. Wasn't the full app of what we wanted to do, just enough to test the market. So we let that paper go, it's all gone. Because it wasn't going to work.
But they don't cost much to put out.
Oh, they're not cheap. They're not cheap. Yeah, I think, I can't remember, David would be the one that quote the numbers as well on that. But worthwhile if you think you market, if you can make your money back out of the market.
Oh, this big one. Yeah. And it's probably a lot bigger than what I realised to start with. So, but I've got 3 ideas, and then I've sort of got another group that I was putting energy into, and I was sort of thinking, well, money's pretty tight across the board. The fund, like I know with my own welding things, I said, well, I might as well park that for now. I mean, getting something like this, because people spend $20, $30.
Oh, God, yes. Especially if they can save themselves, hundreds at a cattle market and make it so much easier. The other thing you need to be really careful about is who you talk to. Because the IP protection, if you go and talk to key players, expose your idea to them, if they're working on something similar and you don't have what they call an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement, so that's a signed document saying I'm coming to share this concept with you, and the intellectual property is mine, and some people won't sign them because if they're a research development company and they're working on something, then they won't sign them because they may have something close to it. Yeah. Anyway, so talk to David about that as well.
I don't know if you did the first week, but that was one of the things that Lachlan.
Okay.
The other one from Mike is, what's his name? Business HQ.
Lindsay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he sort of went through that to me. There was a general agreement.
Yes.
That anything that's to start, because you've already paid money to. In a course like this, and there's a general agreement.
And there are certain times that if you want to sit down with people and say, look, I need to know more about this, like Appy Work, I would assume that you've got them on an NDA.
I haven't signed anything with them, but,
that's
but they help develop it for me.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. You need to get on an NDA.
Yep.
Okay. So, really important. Anyone you have expose your entire idea to, you must get or discuss your idea with. So technically, when you go and see David Kilman, really, you would be doing an NDA.